I think as a starting point, it was about the location and what was available, and then really just sort of sitting back with Finn, the producer, and kind of thinking about what kind of story we wanted to tell. So it became like a real-time journey in a sense.
We need to find shelter.
I think it's hard with very little budget to actually set out to make something and say, right, it's going to be this. You know, most of the filmmakers I've worked with, they all agree. You don't actually really know what the thing is until you sit down in the edit and you start putting it together. And I think that's quite an exciting way to work. I think when lots of money and big budgets come into play, then, you know, it's harder to do that. But with Tank 432, we definitely had a bit more freedom to experiment. I think the film itself, the premise is extremely simple. A team of people who discover something horrible whilst doing a job. They get locked inside an armoured personnel carrier. It's set against the backdrop of British countryside. So we try to find really beautiful landscapes and insects and things that are very real and reminiscent to the UK, and then set this rather awful story against that. They were real tanks that we used. There was no sets or anything like that. We couldn't afford to build a set. One is a shell that doesn't have an engine as such, and that meant that we could cut the sides off and point cameras through. Then we had another one that moved, which you see in the film, and Rupert Evans is chasing Michael Smiley around a field. Come on! But the general feel of it was just not a place you would want to spend very much time. We used a variety of wider lenses, and we used those close up, try and give a sense of just being inside somewhere horrible that you want to get out of. With a low budget, you know, you can aim as high as you want, and you should do as a filmmaker, really, but you've got to be a little bit grown up and realistic about who's going to want to be in your movie. It's about finding people that you enjoy working with and sticking with them. Film's really collaborative. Having actors that are willing to follow you into a field when it's sideways rain, do those long hours, keep that energy level up, and everybody did. Dr. Monster was designed by Dan Martin, and the idea loosely was that they've undergone this experiment and they've been released into the field. They've all got this stuff inside them, and what they're seeing is in fact just a scientist in a gas mask, but to them, and from the perspective of the characters, the audience, it looks like this hideous monster. It was there for the reason of giving them something to really run away from.
Get in! Close the hatch! Close it!
I remember picking the DVD up in a supermarket, I think it was, and I looked around for it for ages, just thinking, oh, this isn't really going to come out. And I found it, and I was like, wow, this is actually real. I can hold this in my hand. It was a really, really exciting experience. And then I wondered what would happen if I stole it. You know, if I actually took this out of the shop, and I'd probably get caught. You know, what would the conversation be? I didn't steal it. I think it's a really exciting time for independent film at the moment. You know, maybe there aren't so many schemes available. Maybe there isn't loads of money. And I think the responsibility of making stuff really lies at the heart of the filmmakers. And there are just so many people, you know, in and around the circle that I've worked with who are all kind of just making stuff. So it's a really nice kind of thing to be a small part of. I think people move in herds. You get this group of people and they're just like-minded people who are just, for some weird reason, drawn together, and they just keep turning up and just giving their kind of like spin on it. At the heart of that, I think a director like Ben Wheatley, he is a prodigy of filmmaking. He just knows how to tell a story fairly quickly, you know, him and Amy Jump, the writer. And I think that they've just come at a time when the industry's hungry for not necessarily low-budget films, but ways of using low budgets to make something that's interesting.